As a community and college, we are privileged that Richard and his wife Eloise entrusted Seaver to educate their daughters, Carrie and Jessica. Carrie graduated in 2016, I believe, and Jessica is currently a senior double major in Spanish and International Studies with an emphasis in political science. She's an SGA Executive Vice President, and she also serves on the e-board of Pi Beta Phi. She's also traveled extensively. She studied abroad in Buenos Aires for her sophomore year, and she's participated in the DC internship program and the Madrid Upper Division Spanish program. There is no better person to introduce tonight's speaker than his daughter. So please join me in welcoming Jessica.
Thank you. Good evening. It is an honor for me to introduce the speaker tonight, who will talk to us about his time aboard the International Space Station during his missions STS-119 and Expedition 55 and 56. Over the course of his career, he has spent 209 days in space and completed 5 EVAs, or spacewalks, totaling 32 hours. Before becoming an astronaut in 2004, he was a math and science teacher in Maryland and overseas, teaching at international schools in Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and Romania. In his free time, he enjoys bird watching, hiking, and is an avid history buff. Most importantly, he is a father of 2. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to introduce to you my father, Astronaut Richard Arnold.
Good evening. For those of you who were here a few minutes earlier and saw the video, Beautiful World, that was a song that was actually sent up to me within an album that I wasn't expecting that song to be in. It was actually a group that of New Orleans jazz musicians, and this song was snuck into that CD, and that was uplinked to me, and but the song really resonated. Based on the perspective that I've been able to gain on this planet we all share. And I've been very fortunate to see the world from many different vantage points, and what I would like to do is to try to share some of that experience with you this evening. So I have some home movies I would like to show. We'll turn the lights down, and we'll talk over the movies, and at the end we'll take some time for some questions and answers. If there's anything you happen to see, or you always wanted to know about the International Space Station, what it's like to live and work in space, I'll be happy to take time and answer those as well. So if we can go ahead and take the lights down and hit play. Yeah, so astronauts train in a lot of different places. I was actually part of a multinational crew that worked underground for a better part of 7 days, including a Chinese astronaut. It was the first time we've actually done any kind of work with the Chinese. And he was actually my tent mate in this massive cave system under the island of Sardinia in Italy. We go underground to explore a strange terrestrial world and think about what it would be like to explore another planet here in our solar system. Additionally, I had the opportunity to live and work under the sea for a 10-day stay, never coming to the surface, thinking about what it would be like to live and work as a crew on the surface of the moon. We can do hardware development, procedure development, and a lot of things taking advantage of the buoyancy of seawater that you can do rather inexpensively and easily here on Earth as opposed to in space. This is our habitat anchored on the floor of the ocean just off the coast of Key Largo in Florida. But to get the real perspective of this beautiful world, you have to leave it. And I had the opportunity to fly on the Space Shuttle Discovery in 2009 on an assembly mission to the International Space Station. There was a crew of 7 of us. I nodded off there for a minute. Including the first Japanese astronaut to go live and work as a long-duration crew member on the International Space Station. Ours was a 12-day mission to the ISS aboard the Space Shuttle, which is one wild
6,
ride.
5, 4, 3,
The main engine's
2,
light, The whole vehicle pitches forward as it rocks back.
Booster ignition, liftoff of Space Shuttle
The solid
Discovery.
rocket motors
taking
on the
space
side.
station to full power
Lift
for
off.
full
Our
science.
friends at the space station are watching. They know we're coming to visit. Going to be house guests shortly. You go from sitting still on your back in Florida at sea level, and in 8.5 minutes you're traveling over 17,000 miles an hour. It's a ride of pure acceleration and exhilaration. The solid rocket motors, on the white rocket strapped to the right and left side, when they burn out about 2.5 minutes, they fall back to Earth, and you can see the 3 points of light in the tail of the space shuttle, which is going to take us for about another 6 minutes to low Earth orbit. And it was an unbelievable experience. The two things you can't train for, when you get there, stuff's floating, microgravity, and the real thing you cannot prepare yourself for emotionally or intellectually is the first time you look out the window and see this magnificent planet that we call home. The International Space Station is a massive structure. It was built all around the world by people of different languages, cultures, even measurement systems, and assembled for first time in low Earth orbit above the Earth. You're looking out the rear window of the space shuttle. You can see the tail of the space shuttle. You can see the tip of the robotic arm. And as we continue this maneuver so the crew of the space station can take imagery of the space shuttle, you can see this amazing machine that started out as a point of light about 50 kilometers away when we first started chasing it to just something that would, if you were to take it and lay it out on a football field, it would cover it completely. It's about 100 meters from end to end, has the internal volume of a jumbo jet. So it's massive. Probably the greatest engineering project humans have undertaken since the pyramids. So we were going to go join. There's a crew of 3 people, Mike, Sandy, and Yuri. We were going to take Sandy home and replace her with Koichi. But our primary mission objective was to make sure that crew of 3 could grow to a crew of 6. And to do that, we needed electricity. And inside the space shuttle in the payload bay was nestled something the size of a bus that weighed about 16 tons, called a truss segment, that we were going to attach to the outside of the International Space Station. 2 of us, Steve Swanson and myself, were going to leave the confines of the space station in the world's smallest spaceship, which is your space suit, and do a spacewalk. We were going to walk hand over hand, which is really not walking, I guess it's more crawling, out to the end of the ISS. And while John and Koichi flew the robotic arm, this massive piece of hardware was going to be flown up to us. We made sure the 2s aligned with the 2s and the 3s with the 3s and the 1s with the 1s. It was astronaut proof. And bolted them all together. But again, what you cannot prepare for, and I'm trying to get Steve's feet out of the way so you can see, is looking at the Earth just through the visor of your space helmet. It's absolutely stunning. To get an idea of scale, this is 2 of us right here, and this is the section that we took up with us, which is just a relatively small section of the space station, which I will show you in a couple of minutes when we back away. That's actually the radiator deploying for cooling, and here are the solar arrays successfully deploying. So when we left, we could then go to a full crew complement of 6 people and also execute the science program, the very ambitious science program that has continued to go on the International Space Station on a daily basis for about 19 years. Anyone under the age of 19 has never known a moment in their life when there has not been a human living and working in space. That's one of the achievements of the International Space Station. We were house guests, crashing on a futon. We weren't really too much about comfort, trying to figure out how to sleep, how to prepare our meals, how not to lose our meals. And one of the real treats was the last day, is everyone coming together. You can see chopsticks. There's Russian food in the cans and American food and Japanese food. Down in the Russian segment, sharing an international meal the day before we came home. Little did I know, about 8 years later, I'd be spending every Friday there for the better part of a year. We said goodbye to Spanky and Koichi and Yuri. We closed the hatch to the space shuttle. In a highly complex maneuver, we went to undock from the space station. This is me executing that highly complex maneuver when I push the button that says undock. and it all happens as if by magic. The springs, the clamps release, the springs give the space shuttle a push, and we start to back away from the ISS. This hollow tube here is kind of the US segment. Over on the right is the Japanese module. Here's the European module. And this right here is the piece that we brought up that's about the size of a bus, just to give you an idea of scale. Absolutely stunning place to visit, but 13 days later I was going to be home in Houston, sitting in a parking lot in Target, wondering if that really had happened. Fortunately, I had video and eyewitness accounts of my experiences. But landing on the space shuttle was like landing on a commercial airliner. It was a very benign experience. You feel heavy, you feel dizzy, but the landing is very smooth on a nice runway in Florida, and your families are there waiting for you to greet you and welcome you home. My next return from space would not be quite this peaceful, and I have some video to show you later. And we're missing audio right here, I think, again. So, about 8 years later, I was assigned to go back to live and work on the International Space Station as a long-duration crew member. I was going to join 3 people who had been on the ISS. We would become a crew of 6. I was going to join these 3 gentlemen on the bottom. They would stay with us for a couple months. They would go home, and then these 3 folks on the right-hand side would come up and join us for the remainder of our stay. This time we were going to launch on a repurposed ICBM called a Russian Soyuz rocket from the steppes of Kazakhstan on the same launch pad where the first human in space, Yuri Gagarin, launched. Oleg Artemyev on the bottom, myself, Drew Feustel. And this is, I guess, a swords into plowshares moment as we left Earth in a ball of fire. The physics is exactly the same. You have to go from sitting still
You inside the cabin, the
to in
crew's
about
still doing
8.5
good.
minutes, about 240 miles above the Earth's surface, going around
Getting
the Earth every
confirmation
90
from the
minutes
visiting
at
vehicle officer
17,000
here in
miles an
Houston.
hour.
Good first stage separation.
Of course, this is kind of like riding to space
Getting
in
our
the trunk
first
of a
view
car.
of Ricky Arnold there on the
Pretty
right
crowded,
seat. All smiles.
but it's a really exciting ride. It's a very smooth ride, and again, pure acceleration. We were heading up to the ISS for a 197-day stay. Actually, it would be a 195-day. Took us 2 days to catch up to the ISS. To execute a very robust science program, also take part in a year in education on station, where we did a lot of educational events, outreach to school communities all around the world. And the real privilege of it was to also have the time to really get to know the Earth intimately from low Earth orbit. Waiting on the ISS, where this is actually just showing the docking target as we fly to the space station, and you can see all the Russian displays that we're monitoring and the ground is monitoring. Anton Slaparov, who I did not know that well, had only met him a couple times. He was the Russian commander, an Air Force pilot, but by the hugs he gave us, you would think we'd been long-lost friends. And when he left, he made the point of telling us, we're all space family now. You're my space brother, and every time I see him, you get the same greeting. Drew Feustel also coming aboard. And my crewmate who looks most like Curly, and Oleg Artemyev.
Norishige Kanai, Anton Chapter.
So Jessica and her mother and her sister and my friends were in Kazakhstan watching the launch. The last time they had seen me, I had left in a ball of flames. We'd spent 2 days in silence, kind of orbiting the Earth with minimal contact with the Earth, only when we passed over Russian ground sites. So this was our first opportunity to talk to them and let them know everything's okay. Take a look at Norishige up in the upper left-hand corner, his hair. It only got longer, and I can explain why in a bit. On my first mission, I got to do 2 spacewalks, which is a real thrill. I got to do 3 more on this mission, and it is about a 12-hour day. About 4 hours in the suit getting ready, another 6.5 hours working outside, at the metabolic pace of a light jog, sometimes more, but on average it's about like you're jogging for 6.5 hours in a suit that weighs several hundred pounds. This is actually me with the Earth to my back. I should have been turning around and looking the other way.
And by the way, you guys said...
And having an opportunity to ride on the robotic arm.
High-def camera.
And at times being hung upside down like a bat with the Earth at my head. But it's a long day, no food. Once you get inside the suit, only water to drink. You're fighting a suit that's pressurized, so every time you go to grab something, you're squeezing. It's like squeezing a tennis ball. But to have the opportunity to do something really significant, important, mentally and physically challenging in the most beautiful environment you can imagine, I would suggest it's worth it. We actually did more than take pictures of each other, by the way. Most of the time we were over in different locations, but when we came together, that was our only chance to get photographs. You get a sense for what it's like, too, in microgravity, because you're free-floating everywhere, and it's really easy to get twisted around and disoriented or get the camera too close to your face, as Drew just did. After about 11 hours, we're pulled out of the airlock again and have to get help getting out of the suit. But it was a wonderful experience. After about 2.5 months, our friends left. Another Soyuz launch from Kazakhstan. We put on our best Hawaiian shirts and welcomed Sergei Prokopiev, a Russian Air Force pilot, Alexander Gerst, who is a German astronaut and geoscientist, and someone who likes to bring toys when he goes places. And Serena Onion-Chancellor, an American flight surgeon, who was great to see Serena again. And it was great to spend time in space with her on her first mission. All of our stuff is brought up to the ISS by cargo vessels. We have SpaceX Dragons, which are launched from Florida, Japanese cargo vessels, the Northrop Grumman Cygnus, which is launched from Maryland and from Virginia, just down the road beach from Maryland, to bring us food, clothing, supplies, materials, science equipment, everything you might need. This is actually sped up quite a bit going down the Nile Valley and the Red Sea, but this is a SpaceX Dragon. And these things fly up under their own control. Then they will actually come up really close to the space station, but the last bit is human in the loop flying this robotic arm to go out and grab $10 million worth of equipment using hand controllers that you would use to play a video game sitting on your couch at home. And that was me grabbing the SpaceX Dragon, which might have been the most stressful day of my mission. Not that I was worried about the task, but I was worried about, it was tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment that I was responsible for. 6,000 pounds of cargo brought up to us. Ice cream buried at the very bottom, so we would unpack it in a hurry. But the real joy was our time looking at our planet Earth, the aurora, over the poles. You're actually looking at a SpaceX Dragon at sunrise, and if you look above the right solar array, you can see a satellite fly by. We see satellites below us. We see falling stars below us. I get asked about what human structures can you see on the ISS, like the Great Wall of China. Well, here are coral islands in French Polynesia. You can see Tahiti up in the upper left-hand corner, which in my mind are far more magnificent. Going down over Italy at night, you can see Greece. Across the Mediterranean and the Nile Valley, all lit up. Luxor is right here. The Red Sea is the black part. Saudi Arabia, thunderstorms beneath us over Yemen and the Horn of Africa. These green lights are all fishing boats over the Gulf of Thailand. 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets a day, every 24 hours for us on the ice. Actually, you can see the smoke in California from the fires, the Central Valley. This is Baja, Sea of Cortez, and then going down over Mexico. Central America, heading out over the Pacific Ocean. The Galapagos are here somewhere covered by clouds. And I've been telling people the wrong thing about this because I just got oriented when I finally saw Lake Titicaca. Let me see if I can find it. There's salt flats there. The lake is right there, and that's Bolivia, those big gigantic salt flats. And then down over Argentina toward Antarctica, but we don't quite go that far south. We can see Antarctica, the peninsula, if we have our head pointed in the right direction, and the sun the clouds aren't covering it. This is a massive thunderstorm over Oklahoma, Tornado Alley. There were tornadoes underneath this lightning. And we make our way to Texas, Dallas, Houston, which is strange because my family was right there. Thunderstorms over just downstream from New Orleans, and you could see Florida in the background. And again, the dance of the aurora at dawn as we head toward Asia. And finally, someone's having a rainy morning with the thunderstorms at sunrise. You can see the robotic arm of the space station as well. Any given day on the ISS, we have up to 300 science experiments going on. One of the things we did, we were the first folks to sequence RNA from bacteria growing on the ISS. It's a wonderful platform for science. We are just graduate assistants. We are helping scientists on the ground execute their science program in low Earth orbit. We're actually working on a microscope here that is controlled from the ground, and I was just doing some maintenance on it. All of this stuff is built for simple ease of use on ISS. This is me in the Russian segment after I just warned Oleg that not to touch the camera. That was one of my Russian lessons that I failed, evidently. But I was talking to a group of students in Japan. One of the things we learned is about the importance of exercise. We have 2 hours of our day, of our 12-hour day, scheduled for exercise. We have a exercise bicycle that you saw, a treadmill that is required, a waist harness to hold you down to it. And this is a real amazing machine. It is a device, an advanced resistive exercise device that allows you to lift weights in a microgravity environment. And this is the reason we need to do that. We don't walk, we don't stand, we don't really sit for the entire time we're up there. The only exercise we get is like playing tennis and then making up the rules as you go along. The old phone booth trick. How many people can you fit in your crew quarters? Turns out 6. It's about the size of a refrigerator. This is why NEEMO never got a haircut. The worst barbers in the solar system, as evidenced by the haircuts you can see that the two of us are wearing. But this was one of the real joys too. You'll see Drew playing with his food, but an international meal at the end of a busy week on the ISS. And this is inside my crew quarters to let you know we kind of sleep standing up. 197 days later, I was a 3.5-hour ride from Earth. We climbed inside our Soyuz, said goodbye to Alex, Serena, and Sergey. We closed our hatch. We put our spacesuits on, closed the other hatch, fired up the Soyuz. This is a part called It's Gonna Go. We're actually in this gumdrop-shaped piece. This is a descent module. So right in here, in the top white part, and this bottom bulb part are both going to separate in an explosion over a deliberate one over the Red Sea. And within minutes, we're consumed in fire as we heat up to thousands of degrees outside. That was out my window. This is me all the way over here. You can see the flames. As we turn all that kinetic energy into friction, it's an absolutely wild ride. You're getting heavier. You're getting spun in all kinds of directions. The parachute comes out, which is a really good deal because it beats hitting the Earth solid, but that doesn't, it continues with kind of up and down like a jellyfish under the parachute. And then you're getting close, there's alarms going off. An impossibly small capsule even gets smaller. And then we know we're close to landing, and the soft landing rockets fire, and you back into the Earth in a collision. Probably 15 minutes later, the hatch opens.
Oh, привет.
Smell of Earth. The first fresh face we've seen in 197 days. An army of people out in the middle of nowhere in Kazakhstan pull us out of the capsule. They take us to a lazy boy chair out in the middle of the desert. I don't know how they get those things there. We have doctors, nurses, everyone tending to us. Look at the landscape. This is a place I've never been. I will probably never go again. Surrounded by people I have never seen before, with the exception of a handful. But what I was thinking at that moment in time wasn't that my family is another 24-hour plane ride, which they were, and that I was in Kazakhstan. What I was thinking, I'm home. I am back on Earth. And I think those are the two lessons. This is actually something I posted the day before I came home. But the lesson of the ISS, when humans come together and find higher planes of agreement, they are incredible of amazing things, like the International Space Station. And when you look down on this Earth, there's only two places in the entire solar system that we know of where life can exist, as far as we know, the entire universe. One of them requires top-notch engineers working around the clock 365 days a year to keep 6 guys and gals alive and whatever other life we happen to have with us. And the other is right here on this planet. So as you look down on this Earth, it is painfully obvious that we are all interconnected. We're all in this together. Thank you very much.